Allows me to set my audio levels. It's just to get your first and last name and the correct spelling, so I have it on
Okay,
video.
well, my first name is Earl,
Okay.
and the last name is Bach. Like it had a Y in the middle of it, like Bach the musician.
B-A-C-H.
C-H, yeah. We're
What-
supposed to be English
I was
family.
gonna say, is that?
Gotta be English.
Oh, okay.
It's an old English family. I guess we can go back about 200 years within the family.
Now you, when did you get in the service?
I went in 42. 2nd of September of 1942.
42. How did you decide to? Did you call them or they called you?
Well, I took some tests. I was going to college over at Ellensburg, Central Washington at that time. And then I didn't want to be well, hell, Christ, I'd done some flying over there, what they call civilian pilot training. And then I didn't want to be a foot soldier. What the hell, I liked flying so damn much. Well, I'd always been fascinated with flying. And apparently I was a good enough flyer that my instructor said, told me that if you're going to go in the service, you should be a pilot. So I took some tests at McCord Field, and the results were good. And then they swore me in 2nd of July of 42, and then said, "No, we'll let you know when we want you to report." And so that was 2nd of September of 42, and then I think they let me know on what the heck was it? Must have been the last day of August or 1st of September. And I had to quit my job at the college and get a plane out of SeaTac. Out of SeaTac.
Huh.
No, it wasn't SeaTac. It was Boeing Field.
Oh, really? Oh.
Boeing Field, and then from Boeing Field on down to Los Angeles. I think it made stops along the way. I think Portland and Frisco.
And you signed up in the Army Air Corps?
Yeah, Army Air Corps.
So you were a Army soldier.
Well, then from there, that was Santa Ana, California. They had a big old Army truck picking us up. It held about 9 o'clock at night, I think it was. Took us out to the base. Ran a bunch more tests there, and then I was going to be a navigator because of my eyesight. There's a dot and a line, and if you watch it long enough, well, then the eyes would get tired, and the line would start moving, and I didn't know what it meant, so I'd tell him, and well, we think you better be a navigator. Okay, and sent down to troop train. There's 130, 140 of us went on the troop train to Houston, Texas. Got down there, and hell, they claimed they never heard of us. Didn't know we were coming. But we were supposed to go to Rice University, and so then they gave us a chance to be reclassified if we wanted to try. And hell, yes, I knew about the dot and the line then. Hell, I passed that with flying colors. And so from there I went up to San Antone. And that was another aviation cadet center, and from there, they sent 200 of us up to Sikeston, Missouri. And then I can remember the CO coming out. He said, "Well, they had us all lined up there. Take a good look at the fellows alongside you, because," he said, when this class is over, why, the guys on either side of you are going to be gone. There'll only be about 70 of you that'll go on in the Air Force." I was one of the 70. We went down to Independence, Kansas. And then from Independence, Kansas, we went to advanced flight school down at Mission, Texas. And from there, we got our wings and went overseas to Honolulu and 19th Fighter Squadron. Stayed with it then all the time that I was overseas.
So did you fly out of Honolulu then, or you actually?
Well, we flew into Honolulu. No, wait a minute, I'll take it back now. We didn't fly into Honolulu. We went by a repair ship from San Diego to Honolulu, and then they had us all so-and-so, and now a bunch of us, we'd put our papers together at Mission, Texas. I think there was 12 of us. And almost all of us stayed together and went in the same squadron together.
Wow.
They went right on down the line, the A's and B's and C's, Arnold and was my buddy, and Bache, and let's see, Angel and Henderson, and anyway, there were A, B, and C's. We all stayed together, and then the D's and E's and F's, and the rest of them, they went to different places in the Hawaiian Islands.
Now you were pretty young at this time, right? You're what?
Well, let's see, I was born in 20, so that would be, that was 40, probably 43, so I'd be 23 then.
23. Okay. So you're old enough to vote and drink.
Oh, yeah.
Full American citizen. And
Well, I wasn't thinking about that, but I think we did our share along the line. Well, what the hell? Everybody did it. Or not everybody. No, I'll take it back. But almost everybody didn't smoke. No, I could never see any sense to it.
Huh. Boy, that's real rare when you talk to a lot of the World War II people.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of smokers that
Yeah.
I've talked
Oh, yeah,
to.
yeah.
If they didn't smoke, they took the cigarettes so they could trade them.
Yeah. Well, when we were in the forward combat area, out on Saipan, well, anytime we'd go to mess hall, why there'd be a Red Cross, either man or woman. Usually, lots of times the gal. She'd have free cigarettes for the guys, and hell, I'd walk right on. Hey, don't do that. Get up if you don't want to pack. Get one for me. And so okay, what the hell? So I pick up the packs if the guys wanted them. But I don't know. I could never see any sense to it. I had a prophet college there in Central Washington, and he was, I don't know what the class was or anything, but he was telling about some of his athletes. Well, I was a track man. I did quite a bit of running, half mile and mile. I was lucky. I won a lot of races, but he was talking about, well, he was a basketball coach, and he was talking about some of his fellas, and he was telling us about smoking them. Well, he said, I don't know a lot about smoking cigarettes because he said, I've never been a smoker, but he said, I've noticed on some of my players that, especially the bigger guys, when they first came to college and maybe on a scholarship, then was a job. You could work for the college at 30 cents an hour. That was the only scholarships they gave away at that time. That would be 39 and 40 and 41. And he said, I've noticed that the guys get tired quicker, and they got to rest a little bit longer.
Huh.
Some of those guys, he said, well, when they first came in as freshmen, they could play an entire game without having to sit down and rest. And he said, I noticed that after they become acclimated to the college and had buddies in the college, and they became smokers too. Well, he said, I noticed that they tired out quicker.
Huh.
And I thought, well, hell, I don't need that if I'm going to be a track man. You're doing your best to try to win a ball game anywhere. I mean, a race anyway.
That's probably why you're doing so good now.
Well, I think it's probably a lot of it.
Now, so you ended up at Tinian or Saipan? Which?
Oh, Saipan.
Saipan, yeah.
We were never on Tinian. I mean, the only thing over Tinian, we flew over Tinian, a lot of our missions.
Now, you had kind of an interesting experience getting to Saipan, it sounds like.
Off of a carrier, yeah, a catapult, yeah.
Because you were Army, right?
Yeah.
And the Army didn't necessarily set you up for that,
Oh,
right?
no. It was just a one-way shot. If they told us, now, if you have any problems and don't think you can make it into the island, why, get over to the side, don't get in the line where the carrier is going, because he's headed in direct into the wind. And either bail out or, but we knew damn well that P-47 was so damn heavy, they'd sink like a rock. And so they get out the side and bail out, and we'll pick you up or have some of the other, because we had 3 destroyers for escort.
So that was your first catapult launch.
Oh yeah, first and last.
So what was that like? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, oh yeah. But they told us beforehand what to expect. And they said, when you're ready to go, and what they do is you're up the back end of the catapult, and they got a cable that runs between a hook on each landing gear. It's kind of a hook. Run the cable from here over to this side, and then there's a ring or a stake sticking up from the track where you're going down on the catapult. This little ring sticks up about like so, and then they said, what you do is run your engine wide open, get everything wide open, everything's okay. Well, then go like this to cut your throat, and then you hold your hand here, and then you stand here against your stick, so the stick won't come back. Otherwise, well, you'd be taking off that way. And this here, of course, your throttle, make sure that all the controls stay forward. And when you do that, why, they put your head back against the back rest. They say if you don't put it back there, why, but you go from nothing to 60 miles an hour in, well, less than a foot. So that's a hell of a jerk there.
I would imagine.
Yeah, that's the reason why you want to be sure you have your head back. Yeah.
So did most of the guys make it then, or did?
Oh
you
yeah, there was
put some
nobody.
in-
Well, some of the Navy guys in the Navy, oh geez, those planes are so damn heavy. They were betting. They tell me these Navy guys were betting. Oh hell, I'll bet that guy don't make it, or I'll bet there's 5 of them don't make it, or something like that. But now there was only 16 of us flew in that day because the Marines had taken a strip, and the Japanese retook it. I think the next day. I'm guessing. Invasion Day was the 15th, and I'm guessing about the 18th or so, why the Marines got up to the airstrip. They took the strip, and then the Japanese retook it probably the 19th. And then the Marines took it the second time, and that was probably about the 20th. And then the Japanese retook it, probably the 21st, I'm guessing.
So back and forth.
And then the third time, why then the Army 27th Division took it. And that was probably on the 22nd, I'm guessing. And then they catapulted us off of the carrier and come on in. But so they only let 16 of us go in, just in case the Japanese retook it the third time. We could have, I don't know where the hell we'd have landed then.
So did you fly in against? Did you have fire coming at you when you were coming in?
Around the point, Naftan Point. That's well on the. If you remember on the map, there's a Magician Bay, and on the corner of it, would be southeast corner of the island, there was some Japanese isolated out there, and they were shooting at us. We had to circle around and then come on in and land.
Did they have any weaponry of any size, or were they?
They had some big guns, but
Well,
they couldn't train us on us because we were moving so fast. And one of the big guns. I've probably guessed it probably about a 5-inch shell. Now that it came out of Singapore, where the Japanese, after the Japanese had taken Singapore, where then they moved it out there to Saipan. Now I don't ever remember seeing that gun being fired, but I know that maybe the machine guns and stuff like that. But they now there was the 22nd. We flew in on the 26th. That was my birthday, the 26th of June. I was the first American aerodrome officer on the island of Saipan, and that's the night the Japanese come out of the point there. Any of the guys out there that are wounded couldn't come with them, or they shot them. The Japanese killed them before they left.
Really?
They didn't want to have any prisoners taken, I guess. But I'm guessing maybe 300 men came out, and they come out along the airstrip, and they take a bayonet and slice a belly tank on a plane. And get back away and throw a hand grenade out there. I think it was 1 plane, 2 planes burned. But here they were against the flames, Of course, the guys stand up there, and so then our guys on the other side of the field were shooting at them. And so I guess they only did that for just a couple of planes, and then they thought, well, hell, you can imagine, a flame right in the back of your Christ sticking out like a sore thumb.
Huh. So they were kind of doing the kamikaze attack on your plane, basically.
Yeah. And then a few of them got through. I would say probably not over half a dozen or a dozen. And then, like I said, a first American aerodrome officer, I got on the telephone, and the guys had a mission to take off early or something like that. I couldn't raise anybody down to we'd taken over an old Japanese barracks. That's where everybody was sleeping, and nobody there. Or didn't answer the phone. I thought maybe the phone line had been cut. And when it got just about right at daylight, I thought, I better go down and find out what the hell's going on and tell them they got a flight at such and such time. Somewhere where there was somebody who was in trouble, and they wanted somebody down there to take care of the Japanese. But I got about halfway down there, and I heard, halt, halt, halt. And so I stopped. Turn off your lights. Well, what's the password? And I told them, and guys come over and talk. Well, they said there's some Japanese up here just a little ways. We've been waiting, trying to get them, and they said, I told them what I had to do. I had to go down to the squadron area. It's only, half a mile, I suppose, altogether. And I was about half there. And they said, well, if you got to go down there, go ahead. We'll try to cover you, but You better, what the hell did they do? I don't remember. They told me, I think it told me to turn my headlights off. So the Japanese wouldn't be shooting at me. But anyway, I went on down, nobody there. And then I went across the street over at an observation squadron, a bunch of Navy pilots had these observation planes. And I said, where the hell are the guys at? No, they marched out of here a little while ago. They went west and then circled around the south, and they came back to the field. And so I told them what I was supposed to do and call them, and they said, well, hell, just call up the headquarters. We're taking over an old Japanese, I suppose you'd call it a tower, concrete building. And called up there then, and the guys were there then, and the guys, well, you might as well stay here with us, at least till after it gets daylight. In the meantime, while the Marines hunted down those Japanese, the few snipers that were left. But I stayed with those guys then, visited with them for a little while. And then, no need to go back to your quarters, or you can stay there, or whatever you want. So I think I probably took a nap and said I'd been awake all night. But that's all it was. Hell, it didn't amount to a whole lot.
What's it like when you pulled up there and they said, halt, there's some, I mean, it almost sounds like you're describing somebody out pheasant hunting, shh, quiet, there's some pheasant up here.
Yeah, if I hadn't halted, why, they'd have been open fire. They'd probably figure I was Japanese.
So friendly, so you would have got it by friendly fire?
Oh, yeah. So when they say halt, you better halt, buzz.
But what about when you then continue on, they go, well, there's some Japanese.
No. The only reason why I went ahead is they said, go ahead and we'll cover you.
But don't you still, do you figure, hey, these guys are good and I don't have to worry about anything?
Oh, no. Well, you still don't know because you know damn well there was still some Japanese around there. They hadn't killed them yet.
Huh.
But you got to go down there and tell the guys because, hell, that's what I was supposed to do. I couldn't get them on the telephone. I didn't know where the hell they were at. I had no idea in the world where they were at.
That's the kind of the interesting aspect of war. I mean, you mentioned a couple times the communication seems to be a real challenge because, here you got people moving here and there and you got passwords changing and to make
Well,
sure.
the only thing is there isn't that many guys. I was probably the only Jeep maybe they'd seen there for, hours probably. Because that night like that, you don't move around too damn much, except the guys in patrol that are probably working together, with the Marines. I'm sure they had radio communication between them.
Huh. So what was your task? What did they? Cause now you flew which plane? What type of plane was
Thunderbolt.
it? Thunderbolt.
P-47.
And I saw a picture of you standing by one called the Mugwump. Was that yours?
Yeah, that was my plane.
So who did you name it or did somebody?
No, I named it. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Now, how did you pick the Mugwump?
Well, to me, it wasn't a beautiful plane. A lot of guys had pictures of gals and women and things like that, and I couldn't think of any gal that would be suitable. I knew several gals, but I didn't. And I thought, oh, hell, to me it's more like a bird with a goddamn ugly bird sitting on a fence with a mug one way and a wump the other end. But that's why. But hell, a lot of guys had beautiful pictures, or women. And one of our guys in our squadron, Mel Petty. Now, he had a half-brother, but was also, they were both artists, damn good ones. Now, if you really remember back, you've probably seen photos of World War II where the Petty girls. You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, he was one of two twin brothers that...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, did you, you had guns and, did you torpedo bombs on those or what?
No. Now we carried, well, it depended upon the flight. Now, some flights, they wanted strictly strafing. In other words, if there's Japanese troops there, why strafing? That's better than dropping bombs. But if there's any buildings or anything like that, why we sometimes carry bombs and strafe also. So what we do is, say for instance, there's a building there they want knocked out. Or maybe, say for instance, better yet, big guns firing. Like on the opening day, not opening day, what the hell am I thinking? Invasion day of Tinian. Now off of the west coast of Tinian, right at daylight, there was 3 big guns there. They were firing on the USS Colorado, set it on fire. And so they, right at daylight, they called us, wanted 8 planes to go down there, 2 500-pound bombs each, and knock those guns out because the guys were having a hell of a time fighting the fire and trying to duck shells from that damn gun. There were 3 guns. So we went down, and hell, we could see the belch of fire when they were firing the guns. Christ, a big old belch of smoke going up about like that. Christ, it must have went 100 feet in the air.
Wow.
And so then, hell, it showed us just exactly where the hell they were at. So then, the first time around, each guy would take his turn and dive on down. And what you do is, you get your, say the gun is, or position is here, and what you do is get all ready, ready for your release, and then here, and then when the gun position goes out of sight, the front part of your cowl, just the last of the metal on the nose, when that goes out of sight, why then release your bombs, because then follow your path, then you get on, climb it on out, and get the hell out of there. The next guy, he comes on in. Well, we dropped a bomb apiece in first time around, and I suppose by that time, the Japanese had got the hell away from the guns. If we didn't hit the guns, at least to get the hell out of there, so we wouldn't be hitting them with a bomb. And then the next time around, the other 7 guys ahead of me, they dropped their bombs. And I was the last guy, and there was about 3 or 4 machine gun positions, open fire on the guy ahead of me. So I called the flight leader, and I said, hey, is it all right I go down and knock out one of the machine guns positions? Sure, go ahead. And so then I dove down rather than on the big guns, I drove on down, and hell, I picked out one and started firing at me. So, hell, Christ, he's shooting here. All you do is don't take any brains to figure that out. Get in position, get him in the gun sight, and boom, 8 guns, and fire until he quits firing, and then climb back up. And the other guys, now the flight leader, there's a half a dozen guys open fire on me. And so he picked out one of them and went down and climbed back up. And we just went around and around and around until they quit shooting at us. And then a few days later, when the Marines went through there, they gave us credit for knocking out 35 machine gun positions. That's twin guns.
Wow.
Been 70 guns in altogether. Hell, they advanced along the coast there. It seemed to me like they said for over a mile without a shot being fired at them.
So when you did the big guns, you dropped bombs. Did you drop bombs on the machine gunners, or did you strafe them?
That was all strictly strafing.
Wow.
But hell, there was 8 guns, and each gun, they figure 400 rounds is a minute. And you just pepper the hell out of everything right around there. And then each gun, you have it fired in, say, at 300 yards. That's what I had mine set for. But with a vibration in the wing and everything, the guns are hitting all around that little area. But none of them hit exactly the same spot. And so you're peppering that whole damn area there. And if anybody's there, they don't shoot at you anymore.
So you're a big, kind of a bird shot, basically.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
well, yeah, with 8 guns, you could imagine.
8 guns on your plane?
8 guns, yeah.
Wow. So 4 a wing. Is that what it's the wing mounted, right?
Yeah. All 4 on a wing.
And you've sighted those basically the same way off of your cowling, or did you?
No. That's set with a gun sight.
Set with a gun sight. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. And your plane now becomes basically one big gun.
Yeah. It's just like firing a rifle. It's why you're aiming, rather than aiming a rifle, why we're just aiming a plane. So you use the gun sight, set the gun sight. Well, hell, you just look through the gun sight. When the gun sight finds a position down there, fire. We usually start in about 400 yards out and fire down to maybe 200 yards.
And how high? How high are you flying? Of course,
that's
changing.
That's changing. We probably start in about 5,000 feet, and then dive down till you're probably down about 2,000 feet, I suppose. Or not? About 2,000 feet. That'd be 700 yards.
And is that when you start firing at 2,000?
No, that don't sound right. Yeah, well, let's see. I used to like to fire my gun at 900 feet, 300 yards. That's where their guns were set for, to be all hit on the target. So we'd start in higher than.
So, when you look through your mind's eye, and you're visualizing coming down, when you get down low, how much detail do you see?
Oh, yeah, you can see somebody standing up.
So you see enough detail to know.
Oh yeah. You can see the gun position. Especially if they're firing, why hell, there's nothing to it. Or you can see people standing out there. At 3 or 4. Well, just like standing here, we can see somebody go across the freeway over here.
So that's about how close
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
then. Wow.
We usually try to start in about 400 yards out, firing. 400 yards, 1,200 feet. And then fire down to maybe 250 yards, something like that. And if we knocked out the position, you know that nobody's going to fire at, boy, they climb back up. But you come down at an angle about 30 to 45 degrees.
And are you seeing the? Because you're firing. What the guns that you have? What size shell? What?
50 caliber.
50 caliber. Yeah. So it's.
Oh, that's a nasty damn gun.
And especially when you have 8 of them going.
Yeah. And then you've got one tracer for each 5 shells, one tracer, 2 armor piercing, and 2 incendiaries that I remember.
So it's a whole mixture of 50 caliber.
Yeah, yeah. And that way your armor piercing, hell, it'll go through 3/4 inch steel, unless it's special steel.
Now I know in the movies they always show if you're on the ground you see the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what you see. You see, well, it's just like bullets from a gun. If you fire in the dirt, well, you can see the dirt kick up. And this is a lot more powerful than that.
I was gonna say, is it just annihilating? It just clears a path out?
Just each gun.
Huh.
And your 8 guns, of course. And if you're closer than 300 yards, I think I tried to have mine fire all within a 3-foot target. But then with the vibration, why they'd probably go out to, I say, figure 5 or 6 feet in all directions.
Because you've got your plane doing this,
well,
you got your wings
the plane's not doing that.
Oh, is that right? So it's a pretty...
Yeah, oh yeah, it's stable as hell. Well, 7.5 tons, holy Christ. Just because there's a few guns firing, you can feel a plane shake, do a little pulse a little bit, sure.
But it's
yeah.
And you're in a dive, so you got the G-force going on.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now, do you, as a soldier, does there become an issue in your mind of the people in warfare? See, I don't understand that aspect.
Well, the only thing is, hell, if they wave at me and shake hands, well, I'll tell you about that later. But anyway, what the hell, that's a job you got to do. It's a nasty job. I don't like killing anybody. Nobody else did either, I don't believe. But what the hell, if they're shooting at you to try to kill you, why, you don't have much choice. You got to knock them out before they knock you out. And on gun position, I could have said, well, geez, they're shooting at me. I'll get the hell out of here, and go back around. Well, then you got to go back around and keep working on that guy until you do knock him out.
And you're seeing
the
reverse.
Yeah, you're seeing the bullets coming right up at you.
Now, you don't try to dodge them at all, or do you?
Oh, you can't. There's no way in hell you're
So do you fly then a flat path in? I mean, so you are...
No, you're not dodging around, because you do, and then you can't pick them up on your gun. Or your gun sight, I should say.
Now, your plane would take quite a bit of abuse, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those were monsters.
Yeah.
So when you came back, was it riddled?
Not normally. Not on that time when... I don't think a single one of our planes picked up a bullet hole. Not that I know of, anyway. But some of the other flights... a lot of the other guys are the same way myself. One flight over Tinian, just when things were probably about 3/4 of the way finished. Things were pretty well under control, why they wanted us to go strafe some Japanese on the edge of a bluff where there's some trees. And I couldn't see any fire coming out of the trees or anything like that. It must have been just troops, probably without the machine guns. Either that or they weren't firing the machine guns. And you can't see the rifle fire. But you could hear the kind of just like throwing a rock on a tin roof. You can hear a click and then a click. But you can hear the little click even above the roar of your engine.
Wow.
But I picked up bullet holes in both wings. And that far and back. We went up through the radio equipment on this one flight. Both wings, fuselage, and also had bullet holes in the tail. But that was all from rifle fire, and I never saw a single person firing at me from the ground.
So what were the chances of them shooting a plane down with a rifle? Pretty slim?
Pretty slim.
You'd have to wound a pilot or something, basically, or maybe hit one of the tanks.
But on that flight, when they knocked out the radio, then I went on back home. I didn't know how bad the plane was yet. But I could see the metal, the raw metal, when a bullet goes through it on the outside where you see the puffs, I could see where the metal had been hit there. I wasn't worried about the holes in the wings, but I knew the radio was knocked out because I couldn't talk to the tower. So I think what I said was Mayday, Mayday, and came on and made a landing then.
Now, did you have a co-pilot? Was
No,
there?
no.
It's you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got no protection underneath from rifle fire or anything else. Now, the engine's in front of you, so if anybody's shooting at you from in front, unless it happened, well, then we also have a little plate like so. That was bulletproof glass. I think it's probably 3/4 inch glass. So you're pretty well protected from anybody firing right straight at you from in front. But underneath, no, you don't have any protection at all.
So did you feel pretty invincible when you were flying?
Well, most of the time, yeah. You don't. Well, the only thing is coming right, firing at a gun position. Why, there's not much danger there. And of course, you got to. They'll be firing at you, and their bullets will be going up until they get toward the tail end of the trajectory, and then they'll. But you can see them coming up like that. And all you do is just go right straight down the stream. You can see the bullets coming at you until you get them in range, and then that's the end of the fight.
Huh. Now you didn't. You weren't facing plane-to-plane combat at all. You were facing.
No, all the time I was in the air, I never saw a Japanese fighter plane. Now at night, on a few moonlight nights out of the month, they'd send bombers down to bomb Saipan, and we'd see them then. Now they could come in off the island. We had night fighters by that time or shortly thereafter. The night fighters would go off of the island. Now, any time the Japanese planes were over the island, why, they had orders to stay the hell away, because we had big guns there to fire on the Japanese guns on the planes.
So no
Japanese
reason
planes.
to send a plane up to do it.
No,
when you
hell
can
no.
Do it from
Yeah. But if they
stationary.
once got away off the island, why, they'd be tracking them with the radar. And they'd put the old night fighters on the tail of these Japanese fighters. And lots of times, why, you'd see a big flash in the sky, and that's all there was to it. They caught up with it.
Wow. What was the island was crucial? What it was a stop.
Yeah, but just on the stop on the way. But it made things so much better because it's so much closer to the Japanese mainland. And once they got Saipan, then they knocked the Japanese off of Tinian. On Saipan, I think they figured they had a total of about 31,000 Japanese troops and Navy and all personnel and everything like that, military. And when it was all over, there was less than 1,000 Japanese survivors. On Tinian, there was roughly probably 8,000 Japanese troops on Tinian is all. And I had very damn few survivors there. And we bypassed the island of Rota. And then on Guam, I don't know how many troops the Japanese lost there. But after it was all over, why, then they put in just a single airstrip on Saipan that would be suitable. The only place that they could have a decent airstrip on Saipan is just the one. But on Tinian, why, it was relatively level after you once got up away from the beach. And they put a hell of a bunch of airstrips in there. Must have been, oh God, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 strips where they could, oh hell. And then also on Guam, and once they started bringing the B-29s in, why, that was the beginning of the end.
So were your planes, when you put your strip in, did you disperse your planes so they weren't centralized?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, they scattered them around, so one plane couldn't strafe that many planes. Now, we caught a bunch of Japanese planes on Tinian, or not Tinian, but Rota one time. And so, hell, all we did is we all took our turns and went down and, oh, hell, you'd see the planes and open fire on them, and hell, you could see them fall down and knock the landing gear off of them, and hell, you could see pieces flying off of them, so you knew damn well they'd never fly them again.
So you just went and cleaned up the airport, basically.
Yeah. One of the guys, Leon Cox, the number 2 man in my flight, why, he was there in hell working on those planes. That was a different flight. But anyway, he's strafing into the sun. We learned it's better if you don't strafe into the sun. And looked up, and here he was looking at a tree, and I guess he started pulling up, and boom, he hit the damn tree. And he said the top of the tree just exploded. That he couldn't change his prop pitch and flew it back to Saipan. But smashed the nose cone on the propeller, but it's electrically controlled. They couldn't change it, but it didn't make any difference. But he said, boy, he said, it's an awful shock. Turn around and look and see a tree, and boom, just like that, he saw it.
Darn. That must have been kind of a thrill to be able to go in there to see all those planes and just know that you're just taking them out left and right.
I don't know whatever happened to the planes there on what the hell ever did with them, but none of those will ever be. Well, they must. I'm sure they've been junked out 50 years ago by now.
Huh.
But they had lots of scrap down there.
So was there, before we took the island, was there anything on it where you were? I mean,
Tinian, why they had a lot of, I think, sugarcane fields. I think. Saipan, why there was a lot of sugarcane. They had a great big sugar mill there. They could make alcohol out of the sugar too. That was destroyed.
Were they dug in like at Iwo and stuff like that? I mean, Iwo.
Oh yeah, lots of gun. Not so much tunnels, no. Very few tunnels, but lots of gun positions. They'd had time to build the beach positions, especially. Hell, the concrete would be a good foot and a half thick, and slit like that, where they could look out and observe where the. And if you know where to look, why when we went back there, why we found a couple of those right by Magician Bay. That's where the Japanese figured that our troops would go into the island because there was no steep hillsides or anything like that, and no reef out there either.
So they definitely were ready.
Oh, they were ready for if we'd have went in on those beach positions on Magician Bay. Why our troops could have been in. Well, we lost them in anyway, but nothing at all like that.
Huh.
There were still a couple of tanks, even yet, all rusted, of course, still out there in the water, out on the west side of the island where they'd just left them.
How big's the island, ballpark, from end to end?
Oh, rough, about 3 miles wide and probably 5 miles long.
That's a little island.
Yeah, not very big.
I mean, you just think of you guys sitting on one end and the Japanese sitting on the other end. You guys are, you sneeze and they probably say gesundheit.
Damn, it seemed to me like it's bigger than. We'll have to take a look at one of those maps, but I think it's about 3 by 5, as I remember.
Huh. But I mean, it's not big.
It's not a huge island, no, but not by any means.
Huh. And so you had the Army Air Corps was there, the Marines were there. Any Navy?
Navy, oh yeah.
Navy was stationed there also.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because they had to have Navy there for rations and supplies from the island, and bringing supplies in. And then there's the Army 27th Division was there. 2 Marine divisions, the 2nd and the 4th, I think.
So once you finally got the airstrip secured for however many times it went back and forth.
3 times.
3 times. You took out some of their big guns and all that. Did that settle the island down, or was there always a little something going on?
Oh, there was a few Japanese left on the island, but not very many. Now they had one last big push. That was on the northwest corner of the island, and then he worked back towards Garapan. I think there's about 5,000 troops went on that. They were going to. That was their final suicide coming down there, and then they. Now I wasn't in on that flight, but the guy by the name of Henry Moore, he was on that. I think there was only I don't know whether it was 4 of them or 8 of them, but they just told him to strafe a bunch of trees just off of the road, just on the west side of the road, as I remember there. And so they did. Hell, they said they never saw any Japanese at all. I think when it was all over, I think they counted, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 dead Japanese there, I guess.
They were just hiding down under the trees?
Hiding under the trees and didn't have any cover to. All the guys, I guess, fired up there probably 3,000 rounds of ammunition each. And I don't know whether there's 4 planes. I think only 4 that I know of.
And at this point, if they were Japanese and they were on the island, they were military. I mean,
oh yeah.
Well,
no, there were civilians there.
Oh, there were.
There were a few families, and then also there was a few Chamorros. Many of the Chamorros, the natives, they had nothing to do with the Japanese, except the Japanese used them for, well, more or less, we wouldn't call them slave labor, but they didn't pay them very much.
So did you end up with prisoners in your camps, or?
There was a few Japanese. Now, what they did with them in the camps, I don't know. I never saw any prisoner camps, but I know that there was. Now, we had some camps there for the Chamorros, the natives, for a while, just more than anything else to protect them. And then the natives, they probably paid them for doing work for us. Didn't pay them very much, but they paid them a wage. And then at night, they'd always take them back to their camp, furnish them food.
Huh. That's always, again, kind of the interesting
Yeah.
aspect of
Yeah.
war, of
Yeah.
coming in and hiring the local people. And
Now, whether there's any prisoner of war camps, I don't know. I'm sure that now when we went back to Saipan there in '94, we were standing there watching the parade, standing in one of the corners, just at the tail end of the parade, and I saw two buses, I think, as I remember, stopped and opened the doors, and here come a bunch of Japanese. Hey, you guys, you ready to run? And holy crap, there was a bunch of them. Must have been probably, I don't know, 50, 75 out of each bus anyway. And some of them were missing legs, and some of them you see where they had an artificial leg. But I thought, in the hell, they seemed to be nice walking down the sidewalk towards us. I guess they bowed first, then they reach out their hand and shake hands. No hard feelings after 50 years.
Huh. Boy, that must have been interesting to experience that. I mean,
but then they all took their turn, so we shook hands with all of them. And they watched the parade there with us too. And I thought, holy Christ, I don't know if I'd be that nice to a bunch of guys that killed most of my buddies. Of course, we didn't fly very many combat missions on Saipan. There was a few. Most of them were over Tinian, and some down to Rota, some as far south as Guam. We flew a couple missions down there, Pagan Island. But I screwed up my back on one flight on Tinian. I'd crushed a disc. There was 4 of us. I would guess probably about the 3rd or 4th day of the invasion. So they sent us down there just shortly after daylight. What they wanted us to do in case any of the Marines ran into a problem, why then they'd call us in and see if we could help them out. We flew back and forth several times, and they asked us to go down and knock out an airstrip that they were building. There was a big roller there. They wanted us to, a bunch of dirt piled up there, and they rolling it out there with this big roller. And so the flight leader dove down, and next guy and third guy and myself, and like I said, we were about 300 or 400 yards apart, and pulled in and fired on the thing, and hell, I could see pieces flying off. And I'm never going to use that damn thing again. Started pulling up, and I could see a Japanese gun position firing at a guy up ahead of me, trying to catch up with him because little Kendall, he was bailing out of there, and I could see it trying to catch up with him. And so I dove down on him because I knew damn well they'd knock him out otherwise. Had to go too steep. So I had to go dive too steep and got him in the gun position and fired on the thing real quick. And I could see peppered all around the damn thing. Hell, like probably a space about as big around this room. And started pulling up and horseback and stick as hard as I could because I knew damn well it was going to be close. I thought I could do it. I said to myself, I can do that, And, horseback the 3rd time. And then I could see the nose come up a little bit more. There's no use just putting a steady pressure on all or other Iroquois. You're just going to stay here. So then I reefed back again the 3rd time and had a little corner of the windshield. I looked out, and I could see a Japanese soldier bend over and run like a son of a bitch, I guess. I guess he figured I was going to land on top of him or something because I was going down pretty fast. But I was probably going 350, 400. And the 4th pull and the 5th pull, and each time I could see the nose go up a little bit more. And about that time, on the 7th time, I could feel the plane hit. And all at once I started flying off after the rest of the guys. Looked out in the wings, and all the gun barrels had pieces of wood sticking out of them. But flew on back to Saipan. That was about 10 miles. And like I said, the plane weighed 7.5 tons, and if I pulled 7 Gs or 8 Gs, whatever it was, 7 Gs is 7.5 tons. That's over a 50-ton pull. And so I think that's when I screwed up my back. But anyway, flew on back to Saipan, landed, and shut her off, and rode it up, and went out and looked, and the belly tank was ripped off. It was gone, and there was a wood fuse on the bottom part of the engine. Oh, hell, it's so far up. And that was the last combat fight of Josephine. apparently, I didn't see it at the time. All I can remember is seeing the belly tank gone. But I really must have, I don't know what the hell they did do. I suppose it must loosen up so damn many rivets. They didn't dare let anybody else fly it.
So you bounced it right off the trees?
Yeah, right on down this way, on down to the trees. Luckily, I had the nose up. But I think I got a little assistance on that. It was close.
Boy, I think you'd have to change your shorts after that one.
Well, the only thing is you never think about that because you're so damn busy. I didn't have time to worry about hitting the trees or anything else. All I knew was I was trying to do everything I could to get it the hell out of there. But then, I don't know, a few days later, then I was climbing up on the scramble buggy for another flight. And I don't know what the hell happened, but all at once, I think I had one foot up in the lower step, and all at once I was paralyzed from the waist down. I couldn't move my legs. So they grounded me, and I didn't fly anymore for a while. They sent me to the hospital for physiotherapy. And then he took a bunch of x-rays and stuff and let me fly 1 day a week. Well, hell, you can't keep somebody in the forward combat area, indefinitely if they only fly one flight a week. No long flights. I could fly as far as Pagan, which is 200 miles north. So I flew a couple flights up there. But then eventually I got ready to go up to Iwo Jima off of Okinawa. And I didn't know where they were going, but anyway, they grounded me and sent me back, up the hospital first on Saipan for a back operation. They said, well, we don't keep anybody here over from up to 30 days. And if you're not going to be completely healed by then, why you would go back to the Hawaiian Islands. And they keep people from 30 to 90 days recuperation. More x-rays, and they decided they didn't want to operate my back there, so they sent me back to McCaw General Hospital, Walla Walla. And the old doctor said, well, he says, you got some leave time coming, haven't you? And I said, yeah, I don't know, a month or 2 months, whatever, or 6 weeks, whatever. And when I got back over, he said, are you going to stay in the Air Force? And I said, well, I didn't plan on it. Now they said, let's let this back operation go then for now. He said, they're not always a success. He said, we can always operate on the back later. And he said, the Germans have already given up. And he said, let's just wait and see. And so that's what happened. And they didn't operate on me for 50 years. That was 2 years ago. They finally, they removed scar tissue on the nerve on the left side of my back. And then they cut away some of the vertebrae to take the pressure off the nerve there because my left leg was going numb.
Oh, yeah. Wow. What was, when they say, because the first hospital you went to was where, Saipan?
Yeah.
So what were medical facilities like out in the...
Well, it was mostly for bullet wounds, stuff like that. Well, they had other stuff there too, but nothing, nothing for, if they couldn't take care of you in 30 days, why they send you back to the Hawaiian Islands.
So they were basically...
just emergency stuff.
Fixing a little patchwork.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, emergency stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Were there a lot of wounded soldiers when you went to the hospital? I mean, was it pretty...
There was probably 3 or 4 words of guys, I suppose, with bullet wounds.
Huh.
And that probably each ward maybe 50 men, I suppose. As I remember now, may have been bigger than that. God, that's 50-some years ago. I didn't stay around there very much, to be honest with you. I went in there for physiotherapy. They did do that. But,
sounds like you enjoyed flying. You enjoyed your time, and real glad that you didn't become an infantryman.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, Jesus Christ, it's... No, I don't begrudge it, the infantrymen. Some of those guys liked it, but... Oh, hell, I flew for 50 years. After I got back to the States, eventually I got one plane, and I flew for fire patrol for the state for a long time, summer times. I was teaching school in the summer times. Oh, hell, that gave me something to do. And Christ, nothing like better than flying anyway. And then, got a second plane and flew that. Well, I finally sold that in 1 or 2 or 3, somewhere along in 93, I think.
Wow.
So I flew for 50 years. I figured, well, shucks. Never made a landing I couldn't walk away from.
Close.
Close, yeah.
Was it You know, the books and movies and all that, they make war and...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are they pretty far off on a lot of their concepts?
No, the only thing is, I think if a person gets too damn serious about it and worries about it, I don't think you'd be a good flyer. I think you'd probably go stir crazy, probably. Just worrying. So, now I found for myself, I can't speak for the other guys. I think it's probably pretty much true, though. If you're busy flying 1 or 2 or 3 combat flights a day, well, it's just kind of like a game. You don't worry about it. You're going to do this and you're going to do that. But when you stop and get maybe a couple weeks off rest leave, where you go back to the Hawaiian Islands, then the first flight, I don't know, to me at least, it kind of bothered me, you know. God damn it, they're going to be shooting at me, you know. But after you get back in the swing of things, and now you're busy, so damn busy flying, and you don't worry, don't have time to worry about it. You're always worrying about, well, maybe make sure your airplane's working right.
So it's an in-between time. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like anything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
more the thinking about,
Yeah.
like parachuting. It's more the thinking about parachuting than the actual parachuting
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah.
Huh. When you would go back to, so you'd go, if you went to R&R, you'd go back where, to Hawaii? Is that where?
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
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 So they'd send you back there for what, a week or something?
Well,
or?
probably a week, 10 days. Probably, yeah, about a week. So it'd be probably, it could be 1 or 2 day flight. Probably about a week, 10 days. And then maybe a week or a day or two back down to Saipan, and then you'd have 3 or 4 days off, maybe a week off.
So when you were out on the island, you were busy all the time?
Yeah, oh yeah. And if we had a little break on Saipan, why, no matter where we were at on the island, if any Japanese planes ever showed up over the field, or over the island, any place that you knew it, why, we had the ability to command any vehicle that, any tank, any car, any truck, anything else to get back to the airfield. It's immediately. Most of the time is why we just, well, sometimes we're confined to the airport. I got into the doghouse one time, and I got caught speeding in the Jeep doing 30 miles an hour in a, I suppose, 25 zone or something like that. And so I was confined to the field for 2 weeks. Well, they're really going to discipline me, I guess.
What, now you lived in barracks? Is that?
Now, when we first got to Saipan, we had a Japanese barracks. Big building, probably, God, probably close to 70 feet wide, maybe 150 feet long. And there were great big concrete posts under the thing, great big ones. Hell, they're so thick and L-shaped in the corners of the building. When we first got there, why, my flight leader, why, he called our flight together. We had the 4 pilots, well, 4 of us, and then we had a spare. He said, guys, he says, let's get some sandbags and we'll put some dirt in the damn things and let's block off this one corner. He says, there shouldn't be any Japanese come over here, but he said, that isn't the way things always work out. And so we worked like hell, and some of the guys come by, oh, there's going to be Japanese around here. And some other guys went in with us too, and I suppose it probably took us a couple hours. I suppose it just filled the bags with dirt. And we used the corner of the building because, like I said, that concrete was, went from here to here, I suppose. And from a corner blocked off like that, so we blocked that off and then a little bit more. And I'm sure we could have had a direct hit from above with a bomb, I suppose, but that chances were 1 in a million, I suppose. So we blocked it off and didn't think about it. And just a few days later, we had a bright moonlight night. And the Japanese bombers came over, and hell, I think there was probably 6 of us. Next thing, maybe another guy or 2, maybe 8 of us, and instead of that, there was 20-some guys in there. And the next day, some of the other guys started building their own bomb shelter.
Weren't laughing anymore.
They weren't laughing damn good anymore.
What, do you remember what you guys talked about? I mean, was there time to chit-chat?
Oh, yeah, we all kind of BS. I have this buddy of mine, Leslie Arnold, he got killed in the Hawaiian Islands. He and I was going to start some kind of a business after the war, but we never got around to it. We didn't know what the hell we were going to do. Maybe like a Yardbirds or something like that, I suppose. We never ever talked to it. We were just going to have. Well, he was a good guy, a hell of a nice guy.
So that was the type of chit chat you guys have. You'd say, God, when we get home, we.
Yeah. Everybody had their own life to live, and everybody scattered their own. Outside it now, the element leader of mine, that's little Kendall. He and Mel Petty were always real good buddies. Petty lived back in Maryland, back there someplace, and little Kendall, why he lived in Oklahoma, and then he later on moved to Texas. But Kendall was a farmer, and Petty, I think he went back to his drawing cartoons and Petty girls and that sort of thing. They always corresponded a lot, just like back to our neighbors. Now, how often they got together, I don't know, maybe once a year until they both died.
Huh.
Both been heavy smokers. I think that's probably what killed them. I don't know.
Now, the buddy that you talked about starting a business back home, what happened to him?
Well, he was flying a paymaster from the field of where were we at, Wheeler Field, which is just south of Kaneohe Bay there in the Hawaiian Islands. I don't know what the heck happened there. He was flying what they call the 824 or the Navy SPD, same thing. And it's made for short people or tall people. There's two posts come down for your what they call rudder pedals. You push on your left rudder pedal and the plane will turn that way, or right rudder pedal and the plane will turn this way. And there's what they call a kick rig, where there's a little adjustment there. You can use your foot and push in on the pin and adjust it back. It's kind of on a rig like this here, so you can have it closer, longer for a longer-legged guy. And I think when he adjusted that on the right side, he didn't get it locked tight. Anyway, when they were taking off, plane started climbing up, and all at once, it started gradual turn to the left, come back around, and as it came back down around, and when they hit in the bank of a creek, killed the paymaster and also he. But I think that pin came loose on the right rudder pedal.
Huh. So it was just
one
of those casualties of war that had nothing to do
Yeah.
with the war per se.
No.
Huh. It sounds like you guys didn't lose many guys over there.
On Saipan we lost, I think 5, 6. Let's see, there was Kobler and Witzig. That was the first two. We lost both of those guys, I think, the 24th.
Shot down?
Yeah. On their flight, there were just the 4 of them on a flight. They were over Tinian. They were going to strafe an airstrip there that's where the Japanese had their main airstrip on Tinian. And there was a Japanese 40mm cannon. I don't think up until then, I don't think anybody even realized that they were there. But they hit the commanding officer's plane, buckled a wing, but he kept flying, and then they hit Kobler's plane. His plane blew up in the air, and Kobler was too close. And he hit the plane wreckage, and he went in. So they lost 2 out of the 4, and the third plane, it was damaged. Well, the CO came back, and he showed us on the map exactly where this gun position was at. And he said, when we go over there, he said, if anybody doesn't strafe this position, you're going to answer to me personally. So we worked it over good, and they never fired the guns again. I don't know whether we killed the guys or ruined their guns or what. I think it was just simply a strafing job, though. I could find out. Well,
I'll look when we go back to. So is that another time that you talked about when you went on a break coming back to think? Is that a time when you go, oh my God, we're in this?
Well,
real
we were
war?
still there, still relatively new, because that was probably the 24th of June, and we flew into Saipan on the 22nd.
Oh wow!
So we were still pretty new. Hell, we didn't really know what the hell was going on. We weren't used to combat by then. But then, of course, we knew where the gun position was at, and I think everybody strafed the hell out of things.
So it made you more gung-ho then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know damn well if you don't do the things right the first time, in a way, you can't blame the CO because he didn't know it was there, I'm sure. By the time he realized that they were there,
That's we talked to Balter gunner over in Newport, and you know, he said it was sad, but you know, if you saw your friends go down, you'd think better thee than me. You know, I mean, there's that part too that's in there.
Once in a while, why from Tinian, why Saipan was only, or from Saipan I should say, looking south when some of the guys would be up on a mission. Why you could see a black smoke and fire roll up, and you knew damn well somebody had went in. I don't remember on Witzig or Kobler. I don't think we saw that, but I think we saw one of those observation planes got hit with ground fire, and so we knew damn well somebody had went down. It was kind of a hell of a feeling, but not a damn thing you can do about it.
That'd be the hardest part, knowing that you either were or you weren't going to get it.
But there was Witzig and Kobler. Don Doherty, he went in a P-38 on the test flight. Plane went off the end of the runway and into a bomb dump where we had a bunch of bombs hidden in the sugarcane field. There was Doherty, that was 3. Guy by the name of Porter. Now Porter was following me in when we were using fire bombs for the first time. That was close to White Beach on the northwest tip of Tinian. That's where the invasion beach was going to be at, but we didn't know that. They just told us to go over there and drop the fire bombs on a bunch of trees. And hell, what they do is they hit and they spread out like this here. And you know what the damn napalm is, jellied gas. Anything that'll burn in that, at each bomb probably, clear the path, probably fan shaped, probably 300 feet long, and it starts in probably 10 feet wide. Everything burns in that. And then the second time around, drop your second one. Any gun positions are hidden in amongst the trees. Now I didn't see it, but somebody was saying that when they went over there afterwards, why there was one gun position hidden in the trees like that, and the Japanese were standing there looking out through that damn little port, and that's exactly where the hell they found them. The damn flame came in so damn quick, and the guys inside, why, it's a hell of a way to die, but we didn't know what the hell we were, all we do is just following orders and dropping those bombs. Well, we cleared off those hillsides in, all the trees. That made it a hell of a lot easier for our troops going in on. But now they said I think on that map on Tinian, where the Navy had bombarded that whole White Beach area. I didn't even know they were firing on the damn thing. Now maybe they said they'd stop the firing until let us drop our napalm bombs. I didn't know the Navy was firing on the damn thing. Of course, they must have, quit maybe before we ever took off or something. But Porter following me, I was number 4. He was leader of the second flight. I think he took off too soon after me, or at least that's always been my opinion. There's nothing to carrying 2 500-pound bombs, which is 1,000 pounds. We carried 2 these napalm bombs, or whatever you want to call it. Each of those would be 100-gallon tank, so that's 100 gallon, that'd be 650 pounds apiece. So that'd be roughly 1,300 pounds of weight. And the end of the airstrip, they were working already for the B-29s. And I think they shortened our strip. And I think his plane hitting my prop waist was kind of going this way, just kind of staggering around, and then hit a blade of a bulldozer. It was right off the end of the runway. It hit the end of the blade of the bulldozer and snapped the tail of his plane off. When I finished my turn and went up and looked, I could see big old flames going up 500 feet or so and black smoke. But the other guys took off after him then, and so we all dropped our fire bombs and came back home. But let's see, that would be 6. I think it was 6 guys we lost there on Saipan.
And we switched tapes.
Wait a minute, there's more than that. There was 2 more guys too.
Octane,
110 octane aviation fuel.
Good for cooling beer out here.
Well, we had 305 gallons internally and 100 gallons externally. So I think he just had too damn much weight, and then on top of the weight, well, then he just too damn much weight, and then he was hitting the prop waist. You don't take much prop waist. Well, even so, they still tell you to be careful about taking off after another plane, because they'd lost a few planes, I think, out of Seattle and up in here. Just you don't have the lift out of the air it should be. But then there was two other pilots. One of them was picked up some damage over Rota and flying back to Saipan. Why, his engine stopped. He had to bail out. A guy by the name of Kobler, one hell of a good pilot. So that would be 7, and number 8 was Viles. He was probably, well, those two guys, Viles were the 2 top pilots in the squadron. Viles, why, he'd done some dive bombing on the edge of a cliff or a hillside. And did the same thing as I did. Dropped his bombs and pulled out and get mushed on down into the hillside.
So when you think of the guys, these guys that you lost and all that in your mind, I mean, I don't know if you do think, are they still, when you see them, are they still the
always the same age,
27-year-old kids that are
27-year-old kids.
Huh.
But Viles and still, goddamn, they were the best pilots in the world. Hell, they think nothing at all of flying a plane and roll her over and back and down the airstrip at 50 feet high or so. Or
just one of those,
just one of those
luck
things.
of the draw or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That, was that, what was the worst part of war for you? Was that the worst part of war, or?
Oh, I don't know. As you look back, why, like I said, you'd hate like hell to kill somebody, but that's all part of your job. You don't worry about killing somebody else, especially if they're trying to kill you.
Did you, now you, you enlisted or you were drafted?
No, I enlisted.
You enlisted.
They always used to call me a draft dodger. I enlisted before they could draft me. Well, it's true.
Huh.
That was the way with all of us, really.
And was that because you wanted to go do your duty, or why?
Well, we knew we'd all have to go in the service if you're able-bodied at all. And I'd a hell lot rather fly than being in the infantry.
Huh. What was the best part of being in the service?
Oh, I think the friends you met, probably all your buddies. Good times we had, hell yes.
How do you describe that? Because in a way, I mean, there's this very romantic part of war, in contrast to this very tragic part. You have friendships, probably, and I'm only guessing, that I will never, ever experience.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're putting your life in their hands, and they're putting their life in your hands, and it's just a feeling that, well, it's just, I think a lot of the pilots, including myself, we were closer than, say, my brother and I brothers and I would ever be. My flight leader is speaking down at the Ramada in Laughlin on the 22nd of May. I'm all set to go down there to see that. I hope some of the other guys will get down there too. I'm not real sure. But I'd spoken down there last March. And they asked me if I knew anybody else that might possibly speak. And I said, well, I don't know. Get a hold of my flight leader, because he was around a lot longer than I in combat.
And I assume that was somebody you had to have ultimate respect for, or trust in.
Yeah, he had a job to do, and we all did our job. Well, just like looking after little Kendall, I didn't have to do that. But it's just one of those things, if there's any chance at all. Now, I could have maneuvered around until I get in the right position, but hell, by that time, he'd have been down. So you don't even think about it. I can do that, and zip down and do it. But that's you don't even think about it. If you can do it, why you do it? I don't know what the hell I'd have done if I didn't think I could do it.
Thank goodness that thought didn't go through your...
Yeah.
Because it's not you hear people talk about the heroes of World War II, And there were some people that truly were
sure.
heroic. But what you were doing in your mind wasn't.
No, hell no. You didn't do that to be a hero or anything else. All you're trying to do is keep your buddy from getting shot down. That is just as simple as that.
When you got in the service, were you going to fight a country or people or a person, or what was your view of enemy at that time?
I don't know. I suppose to get in and do my share to get the war over is all, I suppose. My dad now, his job at one time, why, he knew some Japanese. In fact, well, I'll take it back. He didn't know the Japanese. There was a neighbor that worked for my dad. And the guy had died, and so we went up and talked to the guy's wife and family, and there were some Japanese kids playing across the street, playing baseball. So I went up to play baseball with them, about their same age. And God, they were husky guys, and about my age. They were short and husky. I was probably about 8 or 10, I suppose. God damn it, most like it's kids 8 or 10 years old. And I was telling my dad about it afterwards. So he says, those are Japanese. He says, they're built that way. Christ, all I can remember is short and real super husky. God, they sure hit that baseball.
It's amazing how much the world has changed, hasn't it? Because that international aspect,
yeah.
that was probably a real novelty for you.
Oh, yeah. I'd never played with any Japanese before. There was none around Olympia, at least when I went to school here. I don't remember of any of them at Washington School.
Yeah, it's interesting, and then how the internment of the Japanese citizens here and all that was
That was kind of a shame. But I guess, well, in a way, I suppose probably maybe pulled the Americans all together maybe a little bit more at the time. But as you look back, it was a hell of a shame to treat the Japanese that were American citizens like that.
So you, now 50-some years later, do you hold any animosity towards it?
Oh, no, not a bit. I was real surprised on Saipan. People said, "I'm nice to me." And then, well, when I flew out of SeaTac, I was the only one from here. And then, like I said, Jim Weir from Pittsburgh, he was the only 2 pilots of our 3 squadrons that went over to that reunion. I flew in from SeaTac then to Narada, a little ways out of Tokyo. And Japanese, they were all real friendly there. Stayed in the Northwest Hotel there in Narada, and then next day we caught the plane on down to Saipan then. But hell, the Japanese are real pleasant. Down there, the Chamorros are pretty smart. They, like I said, they're this Commonwealth of Saipan now. And Japanese, why they wanted to build some hotels along the beach. Sure, go ahead. We'll give you 25-year lease or 50-year lease. I don't know what what it cost them or anything. Probably couldn't have been too much. The only thing is, after that 25-year lease is up, why then the hotel goes to the Chamorros. Now maybe after all that salt water, 25 years or 50 years, maybe wouldn't be too much. But the Chamorros, why they'll get the hotels sooner or later.
Was it weird to go back to because when you were there, it was a war zone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was an island that you were, remodeling.
Yeah, and then when I went back over, hell, it's just like Hawaii was 50 years ago. Lots of sunshine and nice, the streets are all paved, shopping center, and big hotels along the water. My God, what a change. I had no idea. I never expected to see something like that.
Must have been hard to believe that there actually had been a war there.
Yeah. But if you knew where to look, you could still see a few remnants of the old war. People there are real super friendly. God, they the Chamorros. Geez, I said, how come you're so friendly with us people? I said, heck, you don't want to see us here once in 50 years. And I said, hell, you treat us like long lost relatives. And well, they said it's simple. If you hadn't been here, why we wouldn't be here. But God, the people are super friendly, real super friendly.
That must have made you feel good to hear.
Is there anything you want? Anything we can help you with? Or anything you want to know about? Oh, well, no. Yeah, well, over at Kegman Field, I was over there, and there was one of the Chamorros came over. He had a pickup. It was about 3/4 of the way rusted out just from the salt water. And he said, anything I can do for you fellas? Yeah, I said, how do we get down to the beach? Down there on Magician Bay. Oh, he said, follow me. So I don't think it's over. Pick up and make it down there. But anyway, he went up to the end of the field and past the golf course and down over the hill and followed it around pretty quick. Just a minute or two here, we were down in the water. Anything else I can do for you? Show you anything? Oh, no, we're okay. Hell, he stayed there and visited with us quite a while.
So you actually stood on ground that you flew off of and you whipped on? And,
yeah.
Was
I'd like to go back over it one more time yet.
Was it a, I guess for everybody it would be different. Was it a happy time or a sad time?
No, real happy time. It was nice, nice to see what it became.
Wow. What do you think that for the generations to come that there's a message that should be left from World War II for kids that you and I'll never meet?
If I were to do that, I'd say that war is hell. It's just one of those facts of life, and I don't know that. Well, we had no choice on so far as fighting that. But I think it's about time people in this whole world realize that it's time for everybody to start thinking as one human race. And all these airplanes and munitions and guns and everything else to kill everybody. I don't think we're gaining anything. All we're doing is killing people. It don't make any difference whether it's American or Japanese or... And hell, everybody seems like they got to have more guns and more planes and bigger this and bigger that to kill more people. And we're only one people, and we're only all going to live so long.
What do you think we were fighting for in World War II?
I think we're fighting for our country, to make it what it is today. And now that we're there, while we're not satisfied with being there, we've got to reach a higher point to have bigger planes and faster planes, and so we can kill more people. And I don't think we're getting where we want to go, but we've got to probably do that. But everybody else they've got to be up there too. They've got to be able to, well, just like Russia and China and everybody else. They figure, well, the United States got more planes and more guns and more bombs and more everything in this, and for us to be there, well, we got to do the same thing too. I think it's time for everybody to start pulling in the horns a little bit, and maybe try to start getting along this whole world. Well, that's my personal opinion. I'm just one person.
It was a lot of one persons that made our country what it is. I mean, that's what's the...
We've lost a lot of wonderful people in this whole world, fighting a war and trying to fight a war. And it's a hell of a way to end your life. Just because, not that you hate the enemy, but it's the fact that, and I don't think they hate you, but it's the fact that they're fighting for their country and you're fighting for your country.
That's the hardest thing. I mean, especially when you break it down on that level on one-to-one, that it really is. It was a Japanese or German or whichever soldier, and here's an American soldier. They're doing what they thought was their duty, and we were doing what we thought were our duty. And when you break it down that level, I know in World War I guess there was at Christmas they had stopped the fighting, and they came and had a Christmas party. Well, the people met each other, and when they went back, they couldn't fight each other because it was just people. Yeah. So of course the military said, no more Christmas parties. Yeah. But
Carl, you got a pretty good slant on that, eh?
It's one of those ones that, well, you can break it down to a very trite thing, but I always tell people that call me that are looking for work, I say, if you just send me a resume, it's easy for me to say no to a resume. Yeah. But if you walk in my office and I meet you, well, that's real tough.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm always curious of when people went to war, what they saw the enemy as. Was it a country? Was it? I mean, some people was dictators. They were out to fight the dictator. So it wasn't these people that they were fighting. They were fighting this one person who was pushing them.
But not only this country lost a lot of wonderful people, but also the Japanese. They lost a lot of wonderful people too, I'm sure. Tail end of Saipan, we didn't see it, but just the tail end of the war there, up in what they call the Suicide Cliffs, why a lot of the men had their families there with them. And they weren't going to give up to the Americans. I guess they figured I don't know what they figured we'd do to them. So the women would push the kids off of the cliffs onto the rocks down below or into the water. And then the husband would push the wife off, and then he'd either shoot himself or dive off afterwards too.
I talked to a Nisi veteran, and what he said the reason that happened was, and you almost got to it, was that they thought that if we captured him, that we were going to torture and kill him. That was one.
Yeah.
And also the idea of losing face, of saving face by doing this.
But
that was, they were really afraid of being captured and tortured because there was some of that. I mean, it sounds like didn't always treat our POWs the way that, you know. But also, on the other end, the Japanese. In fact, I talked to one Japanese prisoner, and he said they treated us terrible, but you want to know something? They didn't treat their soldiers any better than they treated us. Yeah. And he said that there was this commanding officer that was walking along, and this guy couldn't keep step with him or whatever it was, and the officer just, boom, shot him. Japanese to Japanese. He said they treated them terrible. Yeah. They treated us the same. So, well, thank you very much. See, that was more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I told you all I knew. It must have taken 10. They'd set up a catapult on a field back on the East Coast, Maryland, someplace back there, so that they could show fighter plane pilots, you know, if like we were in that position, what it was like, you know. Well, hell, they had it all set up in the field and everything, and took pictures of it and everything. The only thing is that the day that they showed it to my squadron, I was in the dentist's office. I had broken a tooth or something.
So was that when they just put you in some kind of cart or something that they threw you off?
Well, what they do is they'll tow you up. Well, usually they'll get about a dozen or 15 guys, and they'll just roll you up into position where they want the plane. And then, like I said, they hook the cable on, and then on the front part, and then they're on the tail. They had a little cable there, and they had a little ring about the big. They said it was a little bit bigger than a wedding ring. And what you do then is run your plane wide open. That wedding ring's got to be able to hold the damn thing. And then once the catapult, once it gives that quick jerk, why it snaps that rig to hold the tail down. But you're going down the runway so damn quick. And you don't have time. Hey, let's stop and talk this over, fellas. I don't know if I want to do this or not. You're gone.
See, that's where, you know, I know they always talked about the flyboys, and they always had a different mystique to them and all that. And I could see where you'd have to have a little bit of a cockiness.
Yeah.
Because you had to, like you said, what would have happened if you thought you couldn't do it?
Oh, hell, well, hell, sooner or later, well, you'd come at the time, well, I don't think I can do that, you know. And, well, our commanding officer, our flight leader, our squadron leader, McAfee. Well, he said, now, anytime you fellas feel that you don't want to fly anymore, he said, well, let me know, and we can take off the flying and take your wings and put you down the infantry. And who in the hell would want to do that, eh?
Did you ever lose pilots that did get to that point that said,
no,
can't do it anymore?
No. A guy by the name of Angel. Now, he probably came about as close to anybody. Now, the same day that I came back and called in Mayday because my radio was shot out. A guy by the name of Angel down in Louisiana. His dad was the sweet potato king, amazingly enough, down there at that time, but he was French. What else? Maybe just straight French. But anyway, on the same flight, same time, he came in and landed. I think he had to go back around. He'd put his wheels down and pull them back up. to go around because I was making an emergency landing. And when he came around the next time, he forgot to put his wheels back down. And of course, that ruined and I guess they were putting the old flashing the red light at him and everything to go around on the radio. And he came in and bellied her in anyway. And Christ, the next day, he was on the way back to the States. CO no more than came into the flight shack there, and CO took him over someplace and called him. By that time, he was like this here, a nervous wreck. Well, anyway, he got back to the States and had his leave, and he never went back to combat again. What he did, though, was he flew what they call a target plane, towing targets and that sort of thing back there. Well, he was just, you can't blame the guy. It's just one of those things that happens.
That's I talked to a WASP, and she towed the targets. That was one of her duties, and she said she loved it. But she said, but the pilots that were training didn't like doing it because they wanted to get over and fight. They didn't want to be towing the sock. But she was like, this was great. I gotta get up and fly.
Well, he was. I've forgotten what he was flying, towing targets. That's what his job was. He'd take off, pull it up in the air, and then the guys would make you pass it on the damn thing. But till the tail end of the war, we were getting along pretty well anyway. I suppose probably another 6 months or so is what he did that. Never went back out to combat. It was just too much for him, is all. He was kind of a nervous guy anyway.
Huh.
Had lots of money, but it don't do you any good.
Now, you were single while you were in the service?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't get married?
I wouldn't marry, hell no.
What did you do when you got out? Did you get out right at the end of the war, or when did you?
I got out, had I think another month's leave time or something like that. I went from to McCaw. That's where the doctor told me, let's just kind of hang tight on that. And from there, I went to Fort George Wright out of Spokane. That was a convalescent center. And I was there probably, 3 months, I suppose, maybe 3 or 4 months. And then with the leave time, my getting out was, I think, just the early part of January of 46. So then from there I came on back home to Olympia, and I worked around my folks' farm. It's out here between Tumwater and Black Lake. At that time it was. Now there's a great big housing development out there. But anyway, milking dairy cattle, and then come summertime I decided to go to college, back to college. I had about 2.5 years or 2 2/3 years already.
GI Bill? Did you go back on that?
Yeah. Went back there just 1 quarter, and then that was summer quarter, and then from there I transferred over to Washington State.
Smart man.
Well, no, I think college.
No, stick with me on this one. Smart man to go over to Wazoo.
Yeah, I liked it. Hell,
I went to Wazoo, so
I can figure it. But it was a good school. Damn right. There are lots of good people over there.
And at that time, there were a lot of veterans.
Oh yeah, lots of veterans.
So the GI. I mean, again, you look at the plus and minuses of war. To come out and have the GI Bill after having come out of the Depression and you know.
Now that had been finished as far as running. I tried running over there when I got back over that fall of 46. It just bothered my back too much. I thought, Jesus Christ, here I had, I was 42, 41. Well, hell, I was, undefeated half mile, I think. But in the half mile there at Ellensburg, I was conference champion, and our miler was undefeated, and our quarter miler was, I think, undefeated, and so between the 4 of us, we went undefeated in our relay team. But I just couldn't do it anymore. Too damn much pressure on the nerve in the back. So I run that one fall in cross country and tossed in the jock. I bet the old coach over there always figured that's a little lazy son of a bitch, but I couldn't do it anymore. Well, different things were important in life, I guess.
Did the war change you in that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Sure.
Is there a way of putting in words what your perspective?
It's completely different because you feel differently a lot of, all I could think of when I was going to college there at Ellensburg was, graduate from school and go into coaching, and which I did. I was lucky, right? But after your attitude and I suppose it's your attitude and things are just completely changed after you got a little more mature, I guess, from the military. Things you like to do as an underclassman, go out and have a few beers. Well, you did that a little bit yet, but nothing at all like you'd done before. I didn't drink much anyway in college. I was too young for it. Like I said, I didn't see much sense to it. And I'd go out and drink half a case of beer or a case of beer and smoke like crazy. You had no brains.
I've heard a couple people talk about that was it. They'd been in the college beforehand, and they were just kind of in college to be at college. But when they came back, they kind of knew more where they were headed and
got better grades. I got fair grades at college at Ellensburg, but I got better grades over at Washington State because I worked a lot harder at it. Had to. Christ, everybody else is working for grades. I had to work harder too.
I talked to one guy that said he was at Wazoo, and when they came back, there was a requirement for PE classes.
Yeah.
And at first they made and you got your card punched when you went into PE class, and so they made a little fake punch. Well, then the dean found out that they had a punch. These guys were skipping classes, and finally, according to this gentleman, the vets got together and went to the dean and said, hey, we were over. We were at Iwo. We've had our physical fitness, and we aren't going to take anymore. Okay, and I guess that was the end of the requirement for the PE class. So,
well, I was at Washington State. I had to take I don't think I had to have a regular PE class except for they wanted me to take swimming. And I don't know what the hell it was, the chlorine or what in the hell it was. But I had a hell of a time with the sinuses.
Huh.
And so they finally said, you don't need to swim anymore either. Anyway.
My dad was in the Navy.